Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, we have our 2K coach, Franky.
What it do?
How's it going, Franky?
Doing well, man. How about yourself? Fresh
We're
shave?
doing good. Yeah, we got a little shave going on. We have
Hey, looking good, man.
I had to. I shaved a little too much. It was a little too much, but whatever. We move. We live in. Want to thank everybody who came to our Patreon watch party yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to the listeners who contribute and who kind of help out what we're doing. It was a lot of fun to watch basketball with you guys, and although it was a loss, it was kind of funny at the end where I was just reacting to missed rebounds and crazy plays and just weird stuff. That's fun, and it was really good to do that with our listeners, and we thank you and appreciate that. And if you want to do the next one, I think we're gonna plan another one in like a week and a half. Patreon.com/Miami Heat Beat. If you're listening on Twitch, I'm gonna throw a link in the chat, and if you're listening on the podcast feed, we love you, OGs. Go to patreon.com/Miami Heat Beat. No Fez Butter. We are not 0-1 in watch parties. We are 1-1 in watch parties. Okay, that's our second virtual watch party, and we won the game against Sacramento. So, in your face, we are 1-1 in watch party. We have a 500 record. So, stay tuned to see what happens next. Today, Franky, we have a lot to talk about, and I guess we're going to start with Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza got traded to the Heat for Myers Leonard and a second-round pick. Which I think was pretty funny that that got haggled out of the Heat, in typical Sam Presti fashion. But they trade Myers Leonard, who, we'll talk about the trade in a second. Let's talk about Ariza himself and kind of his fit on the team. Franky, I think a lot of people are looking at this move from a defensive perspective, and to me, I kind of look at it as like an offensive move for them. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think a combination. I look at it as a two-way guy that we are so badly in need of. We have Bam Adebayo, we have Jimmy Butler, and that's it. Avery Bradley was supposed to be that guy. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Trevor Ariza is a guy who can play on both ends, contribute. He can't be matchup hunted. He can't be left open. He's the kind of guy that you can throw at an all-defensive lineup when you need a stop. He can close games with you because he can shoot. He's a veteran, a champion. He's been through the ringer. He's had to guard KD in playoff series, guarded Kobe. He's guarded a lot of greats. He's battle-tested. I'm really excited for the contribution. I don't think he's going to be like a guy who's going to set the team into a championship aspiration, but he's definitely a piece that improves the team.
For me, Miami's offense is a lot of movement. It's a lot of off-ball screens. It's a lot of sets that involves kind of the relentless motion of their shooters. While Jimmy and Bam hold the ball up top, are dangerous threats. What's happening kind of behind the ball is what's important. And I think for Ariza being a good shooter, that changes their calculus in how they're defended, and their offense is about 20th since Butler's returned. So that's from January 30th on. They have the 20th best offense in that span, which is not good. But if you look at a guy like Iguodala, who I'm sure that Ariza is going to be taking most of those, if you look where to slot him in, it's going to be kind of in that Andre role, who plays a lot of power forward for them. When they do kind of, when they're screening in their off-ball sets, Andre's a guy that you can leave alone, that you can forget about, that you can not, guard, right? So if he's screening, if they're kind of running a curl or something in pistol in the corner, right? So that's when a man screens for the ball handler in the corner to kind of run up to the three-point line. If Andre's the screener there, he's not guarded, right? Or if he's standing in the corner and pick and roll, he's not guarded. And Ariza's a guy that will be defended. And for Miami, who struggles with their offense, who really relies on a lot of miscommunications and misdirections, and, when Duncan springs free because somebody didn't switch right, or somebody was supposed to switch and they didn't switch, or they get the wrong matchup, or somebody messes up, all of a sudden a good shooter pops out and they're open. And that was really a lot of their offense last year. And this year, it's easy. If you make a mistake, Iguodala's not going to make you pay as much, right? And Franky, I think the hope is that Ariza can come in here and kind of make teams pay for mistakes because their offense really is not doing that.
Right. He's like, in a lot of ways, he's a similar version of Jay, where he's two-way guy. He's gonna hit shots. He's gonna play both forward spots, have to guard some fives at times on switches, like the rim diving, like DeAndre Jordan types that won't hurt you in a post up. So I like Ariza a lot. I think exactly what you said. He's going to replace Iguodala in a lot of those lineups that have been struggling with Bam and Jimmy. Um, and he's veteran, knows how to read the floor, good passer, solid passer, makes simple reads, gonna cut, gonna run in transition. It's the kind of guy that the Heat needs as role players. The vets that know how to play, that are perfect fits in any situation. He's gonna fit right in. Spo's gonna love him.
Yeah, like he's and I think the situation and our friend Leif over at Five Reasons kind of pointed out this as well. Like this is a really similar situation to Iguodala because they're around the same age. They haven't played in a season. And Andre, was on a finals team the year before, and Ariza was on a Portland team and shot 40%. In Portland, I think particularly from the corners. Cooper Moorhead is a great piece, by the way. You should read that. Coop is amazing. But he's a guy that can help them. He's a guy that I agree with you. He's not gonna like completely change the dynamic of their team in like a real significant way. But I think that, and Tiffany has mentioned this on both Miami Heat Beat and on Hangover Time, that they just need smaller incremental moves to kind of free up some of their stuff because they're obviously a good team, but they have issues. And I think last night against Memphis, some of that creeped up, and their shooting in particular. And, if he can kind of inject some life into their offense, whether it be by just having a guy as a spacer, whether it be as an active participant, as a screener, whether it be another guy to help you get turnovers to kind of flow into your offense more, because he'd have a lot of good transition players, Jimmy, Tyler, Goran, Bam, even Duncan, right, and Kendrick. Franky, I think like that stuff, those little things are really going to help them, and maybe it's not going to get them from 20th in offense to 7th, but maybe it gets them from 20th to 17th. And then if you make another move, you can get into 12 or something like that with their elite defense.
Yeah, and another thing as well, I tweeted this out yesterday, but this gives Andre some rest. Like we don't have to rely on Andre to play. Andre has played like almost every game, pretty much, besides the games he had to miss for COVID and last night. But he's like you said, they're almost the same age. Trevor brings a very different skill set offensively than Andre, but defensively they're similar players. Trevor's a little bigger, so it's going to be easy, and he's had more experience guarding up position, playing the four, guarding the fives, especially in Houston switch heavy defense. He was one of Nick Hayes pointed out yesterday in the pregame show that he was one of the biggest reasons they were able to switch so much in Houston, because he's strong, he's smart, he's got a tremendous wingspan, 7'2" wingspan. He's great reading passing lanes and playing them. So that's just another guy. Like when he goes zone, and you can throw out guys like Andre, Avery, Jimmy, Bam, Trevor. Like they have so much length, so much experience. And I dare you to throw a soft pass around those guys. Like you're going to get picked, and that's going to help their transition offense, which we've seen uptick during the winning streak and this recent stretch. That they're running in transition a lot more because they're getting more steals, they're pushing the ball, they're being aggressive defensively. He's going to fit right into that kind of role.
Yeah, and like he's a guy that I think you can count on to close as well.
Yeah.
Like so, Bam, Jimmy, and Andre is a trio that Eric Spoelstra really likes, and we've seen them when they're all available that they close often. That lineup is minus 9.5 per 100 possessions with a 95 offensive rating. Right, it's just not good enough. Right? No. That's not getting it done. And if you replace a guy like Andre, or you add in there a guy like Ariza, all of a sudden you get a little more oomph. You get a little bit more kind of ball hawk, as you kind of talked about. Throw a soft pass around there. The switching is huge. Now Miami still does they mix in a lot of drops and a lot of switch coverages. They do a lot of things defensively, and I think Trevor can do both.
Yeah.
And as Cooper Moorhead pointed out in his piece, and we've talked a lot about on this podcast, the Heat are second in fewest attempts at the rim, and now they're up to fewest percentage at the rim allowed. The rim defense has been really good without a rim protector, and it's all been perimeter traps, and Matt Trevor and those traps are going to be really good.
Yeah, man, he's going to be able to play the passing lanes like we said. He's going to be active. He's going to have that standing reach to help inside to continue to help guard against the rim. He's got like he's another guy that knows how to play basketball. That's one of the biggest things. You need guys with that kind of IQ, that experience, that confidence, and it's not just confidence that the Spo has in him. It's that the team will have confidence in him. He's going to be able to play right in. He's been around the league and back. He's the most traded player in NBA history.
11 times.
Yeah, but he's been around the league for a reason because teams want him. Teams want him because they know he's good on both ends. He's going to fit right in. He's a no-nonsense player. He's a really good fit. 20-minute guy, probably 25 on some nights that he's a heavier load. But that's exactly what this Heat needs. It's not a huge in that kind of role. Yeah, you have Iguodala there. He's played really well this season for his expectations as well. Shot the ball better than we expected, I'd say. And he's hit a lot of clutch shots, but Trevor's going to be able to do that on a more consistent basis. And we've seen him time and time again when he's on playoff teams, as we saw when he went from Sacramento to Portland. He played more inspired ball, shot 40% from three with Portland, and that's the corners, man. He's gonna be elite from the corners. I think he's a career 40% shooter from the corners. I saw a BOR reference. I'm excited, man. He's just gonna be a seamless fit for this offense and defensively.
I think that hasn't been stated enough what a seamless fit he'll be. It's just because they run stuff that he has run before and that he's comfortable running. And like there's guys like him, like KZ Okpala would play, like he can eat those KZ minutes and some of Andre's to spell him a little bit. And you saw last night against Memphis, they missed Andre. Right, like I know that it's maybe not a big headliner. Like nobody's gonna feel sorry for them because their 36-year-old was out a game. But I mean, you felt that absence at times, especially at late in game. When John Morant goes to the rim, scores on Jimmy, and the help man is Goran on that play. I mean, you miss Andre there, and if you have a guy like Ariza, now all of a sudden it's not you don't have such a it's not such a noticeable difference. I will say this, and we can kind of close on Ariza because we have a lot of stuff to get to. Hash87 said in chat, we got rid of a player that the Heat didn't use, and we added a player that we will for a 7th grader in that 2027 pick. That's true, right?
Absolutely.
I saw Streaky Shooter on Twitter tweeted out, it's like, the Heat traded Myers Leonard and the 7th grader who ruined his career for a guy that's like legitimately going to help them, and a guy that and has been in battles. I think it's cool, like kind of the Andre factor as well. Like, they've played against each other in big stake playoff series, like the battles that they've had. And I guess one of the things about switching that I think is important in this league, particularly in the Eastern Conference, is switching mucks up your offense for a couple of reasons. Mm-hmm. Because it baits you into isolation ball, which I think is a net win for the most part, especially for a team like the Heat who send a lot of really smart and good help. And the East is filled with these really scary perimeter players. You have Giannis, KD, Kyrie, Jason Tatum, Harden, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker if he's healthy, right? Like there's a lot of really Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, Malcolm Brogdon.
We're talking playoff teams, Jay.
I'm sorry, yeah. But there's a lot of really good perimeter players, and the more that you can switch those guys with length, the better your defense is going to be in games that count. Because it's all fine if you limit Cleveland to like Cleveland can't score. Like, who cares? Cleveland sucks. But when it comes down to the Nets, when it comes down to the Bucks, when it comes down to the big boy teams, when you can switch and when you can muck stuff up and you can also drop and you can mix in different defensive schemes, that's huge. And they add just another guy to throw at Durant. That's another long guy to throw at Harden, who, I mean, we've seen in the playoffs, Harden struggles, right? He's not the same guy, and if you can put more length on him, that's going to help and all that stuff. So that's important.
We've also seen like the Heat do a lot, like you said, the Heat play a lot of different defensive styles. They do the switching, they do the hedging, they do the drop. But you see a lot when teams try to isolate against or try to bring Duncan or Tyler or Goran on ball to screen. They run those little soft hedges to try to get to force the switch and force the rotation and force the help and force an advantage with slips and stuff. And we've seen oftentimes that the backside rotation has to be on point. We know Trevor is going to be on point on those rotations. He's going to be dependable. He's going to know when to switch, how to help, and he's one of the best steal percentage guys all time in the NBA. We have, I think I saw a stat that we had like 4 of the top 25 steal percentage guys all time, if you include Avery. That's fucking crazy. Like I'm excited for the defense. I love fast-paced basketball where we're stealing like the big 3 area where we're stealing, we're putting pressure on the defense to make bad passes and tough passes with a tight airspace, and we have the length and the IQ and the reaction time to get those.
So and by the way, like for Chad and listeners, you know, when I look at this Heat season, I look at them from January 30th on, because anything before that was just demolished by COVID, and then the time that wasn't demolished by COVID, Jimmy Butler was on a bad ankle. So for me, their season really started on January 30th against the Kings. Since January 30th, they're 30th in pace. It's dead last behind Detroit. You know, this all the teams in the league. And if you're the Heat, and if you want to grease your offense a little bit, one of the things you can do is what Franky just said. You know, kind of get out in transition, kind of push the pace, be faster. And when you have ball hawks like Avery, like Ariza, Iguodala, like Jimmy, you know, you give yourself a chance. You give yourself a chance to score and then set your defense, and especially on those fast breaks. You know, if you have 2 of those guys on a fast break, you still have 3 or 4 guys back, you know, already set, right? And it's good. It's just, you know, you win all around. There's really no downside, and it's going to help them. And again, it's not, you know, it's not like adding this all-star level guy, but, you know, you kind of slot him in, and they've had a vacuum at the 4, and now they have a guy who can play 4. Now, is he the most ideal person to put at power forward? You know, probably not. You know, he may struggle in some when there's a little bigger guy on him, like Durant or whatever, or Giannis. Yet to be seen if he can guard that up. But we'll see. We'll see. I thought the other interesting news of the day, Franky, was on Woj's podcast. Woj said that he didn't feel like Miami was done dealing, and that Olynyk is kind of looked at in trade packages. And fans had a weird reaction to that because, I mean, KO's $12.5 million contract makes sense to move. They really only have Andre and his contract as like big chunky things, right? Like that's what they have. So their remaining assets are, they have Andre's 15, they have KO's 12.5, they have Harkless and Bradley, that's about 9 point something, because together they're the mid-level exception. So about $35 million in expiring contracts. They have a $7.5 million trade exception, which I always preface that they cannot add the trade exception to another figure. The trade exception is its own thing. I cannot add the trade exception to the $35 million that they already have, and then all of us, you know, we'd have 42. That's not how it works. It has to be its own trade that, right, you know, you can include picks and stuff, but you can't add salary with the trade exception. So they can get something with the trade exception. They have $35 million in expiring, and Olynyk, Andre, Harkless, and Bradley. They have Precious Achiuwa, who's an interesting young player and a center, and there are some teams that really need a big. And they have a 2022 second-round pick left, and I believe that's via Philadelphia. They also have the biannual exception in the buyout market, because now they don't have, because Myers Leonard got traded, they don't have the injury exception, which was like 4.5. So right, that's gone. So that's kind of their playing board. And then Woj, you know, had the pod, and he's like, I'd be surprised if Miami's done dealing. They're on the phones, and we know, I don't think, Franky, we should be surprised that Pat Riley's, you know, some people in chat are pointing out Goran Dragic. Goran Dragic is not getting moved. Yeah, we've had no indication. So I mean, I think there's probably something else coming. You know, obviously, you know, there's some smoke over in Sacramento, and they did the whole thing of we're not trading anybody. You know, we've heard that before. But Franky, I actually think that they have enough in assets to like get something done. Like, I think that if they want to do like a medium-sized move, I think that they have the goods.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, Trevor doesn't fully fix the issue at the four spot. But I think the combination of him and Kelly uh, is a pretty good lineup right there. You can, if you want to move towards the playoffs and start Ariza at the four, eventually when he's more game speed and it fully implemented into the system and comfortable, you can do that. You can start Kelly and then run Ariza lineups at the four later, and that should help you as a small ball four. Uh, I think you can run 48 minutes of them two and some Iguodala. I think that's perfectly fine. Or some Jimmy if you want to mix in some guard. If you got another two-way guy that can help, like if Avery's healthier and contributing. Um, but yeah, definitely. I don't think we're seeing a huge move to go in. Like I don't think Tyler's going to be moved. I don't think Duncan's going
No
to
way.
be moved unless something really eye popping comes up. But definitely Precious is still something they can dangle. KZ's been playing pretty solid. Uh, lost you G for a second.
No, it's okay. I think the USB cable's a little faulty, and the driver sometimes loses it.
All good, all good. But yeah, like KZ's been playing a little well. I'm sure a young team would like to take a flyer on him as an asset. Um, they have some pieces. I don't really want to give up Kelly unless you can get like Bielitsa or like a Harrison Barnes, Otto Porter, some type like that is gonna soak up a lot of those 4 minutes for you and be a clear upgrade. Um, but like Bielitsa, like I've seen people. I like Bielitsa, but that would be like I need a clear upgrade at the guard spot that Kelly had to be included, and probably not even just Oladipo because like I love Oladipo, but I don't think Oladipo Bielitsa is a clear upgrade like that as like Kelly and Oladipo would be.
I agree.
Because
I'm totally with you.
yeah, because I like Bielitsa. He's a good player, but I think Kelly's a better passer. He's really good chemistry with Bam and Jimmy, Goran. All those guys have been with it. I think after Udonis and Goran, isn't Kelly like the longest tenured Heat player? Oh, he came in the same year as Bam, but like
Yeah.
he's right up there
No, he
with all
came in the
these
year
guys.
before, I think.
No, he got there
He got here.
right
Oh,
at the
that's
same
right. Because he wasn't on the 30 and 11 team. You're right.
time. Right.
Um,
But yeah, like I still think they need a guard, unless like they're really confident in Nunn and Hero, performance and really comfortable there going forward. And Nunn is another guy that they can throw out to a package for somebody, a veteran guard that can help us.
so it's funny because I didn't even put this out. King's Twitter, a King's blogger, for SB Nation put this trade out. Harkless, Olynyk, Precious, and a first round pick for Harrison Barnes and Justin James.
Yeah, I
Now,
saw that trade, and I saw Kings fans like, and we get a pick. I'll take, I'll take
yeah,
like that. That was an extra vote. Like they didn't even think the pick was worth it.
I thought that was funny. I was like, I was for sure that I was like, that looks like a poo poo platter plus Precious and a pick. And
Yeah,
then King's Twitter is like, yo, and a pick.
yeah, exactly. Like I thought the pick was an essential, but I mean, I like
Sac-
Precious.
Sacramento, somebody on King's Twitter says Miami is laughing uncontrollably before hanging the phone up.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw that too. It's crazy how fans have such different.
Chad's mad at it. Chad doesn't like the trade.
Yeah, that I don't.
They're saying, somebody, yeah, hell no, way too much.
I wonder what's the
I
too
don't.
much.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
If
the
you
pick maybe. I
if you
don't
can
know.
get
Yeah.
that done without the pick, that'd be great.
I
Uh,
mean, Precious last night was just horrible, and I think that he's really got his minutes cut. And I understand people's concern in a trade like that, where you really just like lose all your front court depth, like But my thing has been, well, you have a trade exception that you can still use. It's going to expire, but you can use it. You have a second round pick that you can trade for something. I'm sure that the Bulls would be. I've heard things that would suggest that the Bulls would offload Otto Porter for a second round pick. You can get buyout guys. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge is going to get bought out in a day now. Like you can find a backup five, pretty quickly. And at the end, you have Chris Silva break in terms of emergency for the regular season. But I'm sure you could find a playoff backup five. I'm not, with
yeah.
all the ammunition you have.
Yeah, I mean, I like Precious. Like you said, he had a bad game last night. He's been struggling recently, kind of hitting that rookie wall. That's part of the reason why Spo's going to KZ so much and running Kelly at the five more.
Mhm.
But I think Precious is going to be a solid player. I just don't think he's going to ever reach that his full potential here because they're reluctant to even try him with Bam. I think he's still only played like 8 minutes with Bam. They don't even use him as an all defense guy, and he was like a really good defender. He didn't even play a lot of five in college, so that concerns me. They're obviously seeing something in practice that they don't like and they don't feel comfortable at.
He's not a four. Not in today's NBA.
Right, but like even like in an all defense lineup, like just we need to stop. They're not running him. So that concerns me because they're trusting Duncan and Tyler and Goran in all, and we need to stop lineups instead of Precious and Bam and Jimmy. Like I would think Precious, Bam, Jimmy, with whoever anybody else, you're getting a stop, and they're not even trying that. So that concerns me. Um, but yeah, gonna be a good player. Offensively, he's gonna probably play that five role no matter what. I think defensively, he can guard a lot of fours and threes. So I think if he can find a role like that, it's very similar to DJJ in that sense. I don't think he'll ever be a plus shooter. But that's why, like, these are the kind of situations where you're you were a championship contending team last year. You're 2 games away from a championship. He doesn't fit on this roster in a considerable role unless Bam is hurt. He's not playing more than 12 minutes, 12 15 minutes. You're,
He's your ticket to get something good. I
exactly.
think
If you
that
if you can improve with him as a trade piece, you got to take that.
I think you trade him if you can get like legit starting level guy, right? Like so I mean Harrison Barnes is really an avatar for like who can start, who's a starting level guy that can do what you need. Which and again in his case it's just a guy to pressure the rim and shoot, right? Like the pick and roll numbers and the isolation numbers speak for themselves and the shooting numbers are there. It was just a trade I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Without that, I mean we've talked a lot about it on the show, and I thought it was interesting that a Kings SB Nation account brought it up, and I actually had another somebody from Brandon Nunez from Blue Wire Kings Herald podcast, Kings Pulse. I'm sorry, he writes for Kings Herald. Kings Pulse podcast kind of tweeted me a similar version of that trade earlier that morning. So it was funny how the Kings Twitter was kind of looking. I think that kind of brings us to the idea of trading Kelly, and we kind of talked a little bit about that with the Woj pod, and you have that trade where Kelly's included. Like, trading Kelly is an issue for a couple of reasons. All their best lineups have Olynyk. It's starting to the noise is getting louder and louder. Franky, he's really important to their success, and I still think it's unclear whether or not he can play in the playoffs, like in a meaningful way against like the Nets, right, or the Bucks. So I saw Simon Smith tweet this out. The Heat are now 1-11 when Kelly Olynyk plays 23 minutes or less, right? So that's usually like foul trouble or something, and that's bad. Like they suck without him, and all the lineup data would tell you that they suck without him. And trading him would mean that you need somebody to replace him that's better than him. So that's to keep in mind as well, because they just really need a guy to shoot at that position to help kind of grease the wheels.
Yeah.
And that brings me to Duncan Robinson, because Duncan has not been what they thought he'd be this year, and the numbers. So Frankie, when Duncan is on the court and Olynyk's off the court, they're -5 per 100 possessions with a 102 offensive rating. When Kelly's on and Duncan off, they're +5 with a 111 offensive rating. That's damning. And if you go through the mix of permutations of lineup data, Duncan's not what he once was last year, where last year the Heat fell off a cliff when he was on the bench. Now they're -0.70 when he's on, and they're +0.60 when he's off. So they're a little better when he's off. That was not the case. The offense is about the same. His offense is about the same. That's crazy. That he is not changing their offense despite being involved in every single set. And I thought yesterday, Frankie, was interesting because it was the first time that I think that Heat Twitter collectively turned on Duncan. I hadn't seen that yet. Everybody was kind of done with him after miss open three after miss open three.
Yeah, it's tough because last year Duncan had so much gravity around him, and I feel like this year Spo kind of spammed the DHOs too much, and kind of like put like it was unstoppable last year. The numbers between him and Bam on DHOs were ridiculous, but there was a reason you had to put Goran in the starting lineup come bubble time because you needed another option this year with no Goran, with Goran not being the bubble Goran, and Tyler starting struggling with shooting. They really didn't have that extra release valve, and then you also had all the in and out of the lineups with health, with COVID. Um, so Duncan's kind of got into a struggle. He's missing open shots. I haven't seen the numbers, but there's no way he's shooting the same on open shots as he did last year. He was a flamethrower last year. He was unscouted last year. They didn't know who he was. He came out guns blazing, and it also helps that Kelly shot a career high last year. Tyler shot close to 40%. Goran shot 40%. Like all those guys help each other. It wasn't just Duncan that was absolute flames. All of those guys were elite shooters. And then Jay comes in and shoots 40% with the Heat too. So it was just, where are you going to help off of? Because every lineup had two elite shooters on the team, and this year all those guys are shooting a lot worse than they did last year, and it's just been a struggle to get Duncan open consistently because of that, because they can sell out more. Bam hasn't taken the leap he's taken a leap, but he hasn't taken the leap enough aggressively and able to hold his own offensive load to make the team better in Jimmy's absence. And obviously the wing depth after Jimmy isn't really strong either. So it's tough, man. It's hard to see Duncan struggle to get open, and then when he's finally open, he had that possession where he missed like two or three wide open threes, and you're just seeing the frustration in his face that he's struggling. He's pressing a little bit. It seems like.
So last season on wide, this is based off of NBA tracking, wide open shots, he shot 45%, and from open shots, he shot 48%. That was last season. This season, Duncan shooting 47% on wide open and 38% on open.
That's a huge swing.
That's where it is. I mean, the 38% on open versus 47%.
Jesus.
That's it. That's your number. And he's taking a lot of open shots, and the offense does get him open shots, but he's not hitting that at an elite clip, right? And on contested shots, he's shooting 35% on tight threes and 20% on very tight threes, which whatever, you don't want to take that. Last year it was 37% on super tight shots and 41% on tight shots. I mean, he was a monster. He was legit. He was possessed. He was the best shooter in the league last year. And this season, he's just been a good shooter, not an elite shooter. I would say an elite. I don't know.
He's a very good shooter. Very good shooter, but he's just.
It's hard.
You're not building an offense around him this year, which they were able to. Like he was able to be a big feature last year.
I mean, 45% last year, 39% this year. I mean,
yeah, that's very good. Like Tyler has a
volume.
reputation. Yeah, Tyler has a reputation as a shooter, and he didn't shoot 39% last year. I think he finished with like 38.
Yeah, 39% is good. He's been a good shooter.
Yeah.
Is he one of the best shooters in the league this year? And he's shooting on volume. He's shooting 8.3 attempts, right? He put up 12 or 13 threes yesterday. So, I don't want to be unfair to him, but when your offense is so dependent on him, because Tyler's also not shooting the three ball well. Olynyk's been really struggling on that despite doing other things. So it's tough, and I understand why they depend on him and everything, but it was just the fan base really turned on him. And I think part of that was kind of expectations, and part of that is like, he's just not shooting what they need him to, and maybe that's unfair to him. But I mean, that number on open jumpers, that 38%, you got to be better than that.
No, and a huge thing is he's about to be a free agent. He's due to get paid, and fans are already complaining about his next contract when he hasn't even gotten it yet. Because they expect
how Twitter
him.
Works.
Yeah, I mean, Bam is still is under his rookie contract, and if he gives you 14 and 9, they're like, what the hell? He's not a max player. Like, you got like, we're gonna have this discussion in 2 more years if Tyler isn't traded. Is Tyler gonna be worth a max contract? You know, like, this is gonna be cyclical. With this, guys, trust the Heat front office. They pulled this roster out of a team that didn't make the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
they didn't make the playoffs the year before last, and then they made it to the NBA Finals. They found with no cap room. They got Jimmy Butler. They put the pieces around him. They kept the pieces that they needed to make a run for the finals. Give him a chance. This team is gonna be good. Bam is only like 23. We're gonna be good for a while.
They're gonna be good. Jimmy's good, and I think he hasn't shown he's better than he was last year, which is really hard to even articulate. But I mean, they're not done in the trade market. I saw the report that LeVar said about Lonzo. I hope he gets traded. ... He can't stand New Orleans, so let's keep an eye out on that.
God,
Obviously the Heat are going to be in on LaMarcus Aldridge and Rudy Gay. Rudy really helps them a lot. Rudy's a guy that really could start at the 4 for them and really make a difference as a shooter, as a defender, as a playmaker. The Heat are like second to last in isolation possessions, which is interesting because isolation is not typically something that we call for, but I do think that, if you have an offense, you really want a healthy dose of everything. You just don't want to run one thing, and especially when they're kind of struggling, I think that they need different looks.
Mm-hmm.
So even bringing in a guy who can ISO a little bit would help them. It's a low turnover play as well, which the Heat, I think, have largely fixed the turnover issue, and I think Jimmy Butler kind of handling the ball a lot has really kind of taken the reins in on that.
Yeah. But as we talked about earlier, the Heat, you're going to face switching teams. And the importance of switching is it turns you into an isolation heavy team. And if you don't have the personnel or the comfort in doing that, it's going to be tough come playoff time. We're going to see if we face Milwaukee or Brooklyn, those teams are going to switch heavy in the playoffs. Especially with Milwaukee now, that they're going to close games with Giannis at the 5 and PJ Tucker at the 4, and they have the body. Drew is one of the best defenders in the league. He guarded Kevin Durant for much of their series against each other, and did a really good job. Kevin said he's one of the most frustrating defenders to go against. And you're gonna have, if you go against Brooklyn, they're gonna run those. They're gonna switch heavy too. You need those isolation guys that can play within a structured offense, motion offense, but can also put their head down, get you a bucket. And the Heat after Jimmy, and if Goran will show flashes of doing that. He was excellent in the bubble and in the playoffs. We hope he can get to that level come playoff time again and be fully healthy. But after that, who are they going to go on? You can't rely on Jimmy to do that every night because he's going to wear down. And you want him being able to guard the other team's best player. He can't be doing that.
But he's not guarding the other team's best player anymore. I mean, they've really used him as a help guy, which I think has been good for everybody.
But against Brooklyn, he's gonna have to guard one of those guys.
Yeah, well, and they'll. I mean, they screen a lot with their guards, so I mean, Jimmy's gonna be on one of those guys, and he's gonna be involved in plays. They're not gonna let him hang out and be a help guy. They're gonna make him be on the ball. And they're not going to let him muck up what they do. And listen, I think that defensively they're going to have the guns to defend Brooklyn. I don't think there's a question about that. I think that they can throw out a closing lineup of Iguodala, Ariza, Bam, Jimmy, plus one more, and that's you can figure some stuff out with guys like that, right? So I'm not particularly worried. A couple things on the way out, Franky. Something I've been monitoring is the Heat's handoff possession frequency. They were at 10.5 earlier in the season. They're down to 8.6. So they're really cutting down on the handoffs. I think that they know it's not working as much, and I think they're kind of pivoting to other things. I mean, they're still the most handoff heavy team in the league, but it's not as much as you think. Indiana's pretty much tied with them for amount of possessions a game that they do. Handoff, Heater still scoring 0.91 points per possession off that hand up, 41st percentile, so not very good. That needs to go up, of course, and that's really what they're married to in their system, but something to monitor. I think that Eric Spoelstra kind of sees what's going wrong. I mean, he's an all-time great coach, so I don't think any of us bozos on Twitter no more than Eric. But that's something to monitor. I think with Ariza kind of coming, they'll run more spread pick and roll. Ariza can screen for Jimmy depending on who's guarding him. I'm sure that sometimes they'll hide a smaller guy on him so they can put size on Jimmy, and then they can kind of force switches and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun. Curtis Hero in chat is saying LeVar Ball wouldn't drop that bomb on Lonzo wanting to get out of New Orleans unless he was planning to force a move. He's been mostly quiet. It's hard to tell. I mean, who knows? That does make sense. And where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, I mean, LeVar is just smoke all the time. So I
just
like,
all smoke.
Even when he's quiet, I can't like try to paint what LeVar is trying to do there.
It's tough. It's tough. Somebody, Schmeathan Smolnik in chat. Shout out to Schmeathan. Says, imagine Pat Riley meeting LeVar in person. That'd be funny.
We know they liked him. That was the year they drafted Bam, and they did like him. They were 11-30 to start, so they were looking at Lonzo, and I think Lonzo's a great guy. Lonzo's very similar to Justice, just a much better shooter and passer.
Franky, it was funny because when I remember during that 11-30 start, we were in full heat beat swing. Leif, who is now with 5 Reasons, had pivoted to watching college ball, and Leif's like, all right, gotta get ready for the draft, and he was right. I mean, they looked awful, and it wasn't because they were injured or anything. They just they looked like shit. And Leif was like, oh yeah, this ball kid's good. And I was like, oh, what? Yeah, I don't do draft stuff. You know more than I do. So I always think that's kind of funny how Leif kind of was like, okay, time for draft coverage, and then they go on this unreasonable, unprecedented run. Want to thank everybody again for everybody who came to the watch party. You guys are incredible. We're gonna do that again. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who subscribes, who watches the Weird Alf pregame show. Honestly, couldn't be happier for Jack, who's been with us for about 7 years. Since doing Heat Beat, has his own show. He's doing great. He's amazing. You guys have really showed out for that, and I want to thank you as somebody who's happy for my friend who's doing a great thing. Shout out to everybody who watches Hangover Time, to our subscribers, to our patrons. We love you guys. To people in the Discord, that's always active and fun, and you guys do. I'm not like a big Discord person, but when I do log on, I do see some funny stuff going on. So you guys are great. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at MIA Heatbeat if you're here on stream, or if you're a podcast listener. We give updates. If you're a podcast listener only, maybe consider coming by one of our streams here on twitch.tv/MIA Heatbeat. Schmeathan Smolnik is asking, I wish you guys had a podcast that talked about movies and television shows. And I think we're done for the day. Thank you guys so much for coming to stream.
Stream beat.